everyone, welcome to our channel Studyology. This is our session 4, and in this session, we'll be learning about plant tissues. And plant tissues is a little broad chapter, there are many tissues to learn. So, you might find it confusing at the first, but then you can make your own flowcharts and diagrams, and it'll give you a little more good idea about this chapter. So, let's move on. Welcome to the session once again. So, what are tissues? In simple terms, tissue can be defined as a group of cells with similar shape and function. So, in our session 1, which was the fundamental unit of life cells, we are told that there are different levels of organization. So, we had told that a group of cells make the second level. So, those were tissues. So, a group of cells combined to form a tissue. So, the cells that are combined to form a tissue are of similar shape and function. This is the picture of a tissue, just for your information and a little idea. Now, plant tissues are broadly categorized into 3 tissue systems. This classification is based on parts of the plants they are present. So, this classification is just based on the systems and it is not given much importance. So, the first is the epidermis tissues, which are formed at the outermost surface of the leaves. Then comes the vascular tissues, which helps in transporting the fluid in and out throughout the uh, plant. Then the ground tissue, which produce nutrients by photosynthesis and also preserve the nutrients. So these 3 are the categories of tissue systems. So today we're not going to learn the systems in detail, we're going to learn the tissues. So you have to start learning from this slide. The previous slide was just for your information. So let's start. So the general types of tissues are the meristematic tissues and the permanent tissues. So let's see what they are. The meristematic tissues, they're a group of young cells which consists of continually dividing cells and helps in increasing the length and width of the plant. There are different types of meristematic tissues which are classified based on positions, functions, plane of divisions, origin, and development. The 3 main types of meristematic tissues, depending on the occurrence of the meristematic tissue on a plant body, are apical meristem, lateral meristem, and intercalary meristem. So there are 3 broad subdivisions in the meristematic tissues, which is apical meristem, lateral meristem, and intercalary meristem. So, what are meristematic tissues? Meristematic tissues are those tissues which keep dividing. They have cells that keep dividing. So, they get they will be in a they'll keep dividing and they'll get more and more mature as they divide. So, in this category, they have redividing cells. So there is very the center of this tissue, or the main idea of this tissue, is that they keep on frequently dividing. So they have 3 subdivisions: apical meristem, lateral meristem, and intercalary meristem. So the main function of this tissue, as you all must have already known, is that since they have an ability to divide and redivide again, they help the plant to grow. So these 3 subdivisions of meristematic tissues are present on different parts of the plant. We'll see where. So here you go. I know the picture is a little dull, it's a little blurry, but then I'll read it out for you. So there are 3 types: apical meristem, intercalary meristem, and lateral meristem. So the apical meristem is present on the tip of the stems and roots. And the function of that is to grow or increase the length of the plant. Since it's present in the tip, it helps in increasing the length of the plant. Then is the intercalary meristem. They are present between the tip and the base of the stem and the leaves. The main function is to increase the length between the leaf nodes. You maybe see when you're just breaking a leaf or you're plucking a leaf, you can see a small stem like structure that is attached to the main stem. That is called as nodes. And to increase the length of that, intercalary meristem helps them to do that. Then comes the lateral meristem. It's present on the side of the stem and roots. And the main function is to increase the diameter of the plant. So let's see this picture here. So you can see my cursor. The tip of this plant will be having the apical meristem, which helps in increasing the length of the plant. Then comes the intercalary meristem. The intercalary meristem is present on the leaf nodes. These are leaf nodes, the small stem that is attached to the stem and the leaf, which and it helps them to increase the length of the nodes. Then the lateral meristem, which are present in the roots and the main stem, which helps to increase the girth or the width or the diameter of the stem and the roots, or to increase the thickness. Let's move on. Now let's learn the functions of the meristematic tissues. It is responsible for the growth of new organs. It's involved in the movement of water and nutrition within the plants. These tissues are responsible for both primary and secondary growth of the plant. It is the outermost tissue, functions by providing protection from mechanical injury. It gives rise to epidermis layer cortex, endodermis ground tissue, and vascular tissue. So, the main points are the first 4 points. As I told you, we're not giving much importance here for these systems. So, you can omit that last point because it's a little more broader. So, you need a little more clarification on that. So, I'll be taking another video about these systems. So, for now, we learn the first 4 points. So, it's responsible for the growth of new organs in the sense that it helps with the growth of the plant. It involved in the movement of water and nutrition within the plants. They're talking about the water and nutrient movement within the plant so that they can do their processes like photosynthesis. These tissues are responsible for both primary and secondary growth. Primary and secondary growth are basically the growth we had seen in the last slide about the length of the plant, the diameter of the plant. That is what it means. And protects from mechanical injury. In this sense, they help them from not breaking easily. Let's move on. Next is the permanent tissue. So we're done with the meristematic tissues. Now let's move on to the second broad category, which is permanent tissues. Now from the word itself, you maybe can guess they're just the opposite of the meristematic tissues. They are complete in growth and they don't differentiate. Their cells are not capable of redividing and dividing like the meristematic tissues. So there are two types of permanent tissues. One is the simple permanent tissues and another is the complex permanent tissues. So, it is a simple permanent tissue we're going to learn first. Simple permanent tissue is further classified into three types. Now, this is where I had told you that it's going to be a little confusing because there is a broad category. It's a broad category and there are subdivisions and again divisions. So don't worry. In the last, I have created a flowchart. You can view that also. So now I'll explain to you. Now I have written three types because the last one is a tissue, but it is not including these. So that's why it's three types. Actually, broadly, there are four types, which is parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma, and the protective simple tissue. Let's learn about parenchyma first. So all these tissues have their own characteristics. So let's first learn the characteristics. They have an oval or round shape. Their cell wall is made of cellulose, as we had learned in the first session about what the cell wall is made of. It was made of cellulose. Here also it's made of cellulose. The cell is thin walled. It does not have much wall. It is a thin wall. The cells have vacuoles and very small nucleus, and it is found in all parts of the plant. The protoplasm is living and dense. The protoplasm is the region including the cytoplasm and the nucleus. The functions, they provide mechanical support to the plant body. Means since plants doesn't have a skeletal system, they provide the strength, and they also store food and nutrients in vacuoles. As they have a large vacuole, they help in storing food and nutrients. Let's move on to the subdivisions of parenchyma tissues. Now parenchyma tissues is again divided into two other tissues, which is chlorenchyma and erenchyma. Chlorenchyma is the parenchyma with chlorophyll, and it performs photosynthesis. So it's simple. This parenchyma subdivision, which is called as chlorenchyma, has chlorophyll in it. Therefore, it's called as chlorenchyma. Then parenchyma. This parenchyma is present in aquatic plants and it provides buoyancy to the plants. You must have seen the lotus floating in the water. It's because of this parenchyma tissue, because they have large air cavities to give that floating sensation. So we are done with parenchyma. Now we'll move on to collenchyma, which is the next type of simple permanent tissue. So the characteristics are the cells are long but then thick walled, not like parenchyma. The cell is again made of cellulose and pectin. Pectin is also another hard substance that is present. It is the only tissue with the highest refractive index due to presence of pectin, and it is found in the epidermis and the vascular bundle of dicot leaf. The amount of chloroplast is less in this cell. The cells have no intercellular space. So, no intercellular space is that they're stuck to each other, they have no space in the middle. That's what it means. Other all points are self explanatory. Now let's move on to the functions. They provide mechanical support again, and they also provide flexibility so that it can bend without breaking. You all must have noticed that why the tree branches do not break when an air goes through them or there's high wind is because of this tissue. Now we come to the sclerenchyma tissue. So the characteristics are they're dead tissues, they're very hard and rigid, they are thick walled and they are of different size and shapes, and they provide mechanical support. So they make the plant parts of the plant hard and stiff, and they provide mechanical strength. That is the function. So you must have seen a coconut, and the husk of a coconut is very dry and rough. That's because this sclerenchyma tissue is present. Now comes the next one, which is protective simple tissue. So there are again two types: epidermis simple tissue and cork simple tissue. Epidermis simple tissue covers the entire body of the plant. They protect from injury, germs, and water loss. And cells of the epidermal tissue is all over the plant and it does not have any cellular spaces. Now, you all must be knowing about stomata. Stomata is the openings on the epidermal layer of the leaf, and they also help in gas exchange and transpiration. And they have guard cells which help them regulate the opening and closing of stomata. And in desert plants, epidermis and cutin are there because they are thicker and it's more abundant on them because to reduce the loss of water due to transpiration. And cutin is a chemical that is excreted by the epidermis. It's like a waxy substance. Now let's come to the cork simple tissue. They are dead cells, they have no intercellular spaces, and they form the layer in the barks. And they also have a chemical called suberin, which makes them impervious to gas and water. It protects from injuries and water loss and germs. And cork is very light in weight, so it's used in bottle stoppers and shuttlecock. So you guys must have seen the wines would have a cork on the top. That is what this cork is. Now we are done with the simple permanent tissues, which were parenchyma, which is again divided into chlorenchyma and parenchyma. Next came the collenchyma, then it was sclerenchyma, then was the protective simple tissue, which was again of two types, which was the epidermal and the cork tissue. Now let's come to the next broad category, which is complex permanent tissue. These are called complex permanent tissues because they are having different types of cell in them. And there are two types, xylem and phloem. So, xylem is the tissue that transports water and nutrients from root to the upper parts of the plant. And it's composed of four types of cells, which is the tracheids, vessel, xylem parenchyma, and xylem sclerenchyma. And xylem sclerenchyma, as I told you, sclerenchyma is rigid and they have dead cells. So, they are fibers. So tracheids are long, elongated cells with tapering ending, and they're dead. They're dead cells, and they transport the water to pits. I'll show you the picture after this slide. Vessel is a pipe-like structure, and it is through which the water and nutrients go up and down. And they're dead and have lignified, thick cell wall. Parenchyma are living cells. They store food and nutrients because they have a large vacuole. Sclerenchyma are dead cells again, and they provide mechanical support to the xylem vessel. This is the trachea, and this is the pit that I was talking about. You can see my cursor, and these are pits in the vessel, and this is the xylem parenchyma. Phloem. This is the tissue that transports food to different parts of the plants. And there are four types: sieve cells, companion cells, phloem parenchyma, and phloem fiber, or it's also called as blast fiber. And they're all alive except for phloem fibers. So there is a spelling mistake there. I'm sorry. So sieve cells are elongated and they have thin cell wall. They have a cytoplasm but no nucleus and other organelles. And they're responsible for food transportation or nutrients. Companion cells have cytoplasm, nucleus, and other organelles. They perform the tasks required for sieve cells for living. Phloem parenchyma store food because they have a vacuole, as I already told. Phloem fibers have a thick cell wall and they provide mechanical support to the plant. All the dead cells or dead tissues are there, they provide support to the plant. This is the view of the phloem, this is how it looks. So, this is how a xylem and a phloem vessel looks like. So, now I'll explain to you what the whole plant tissue is about. So, the plant tissue is basically divided into two different tissues, which is meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. Now, the meristematic tissue is divided into three types of tissue: apical meristem, lateral meristem, and intercalary meristem. Apical meristem is to increase the length and it's present on the shoots. Lateral meristem is to increase the girth or the diameter and it's present on roots and stems. Intercalary meristem is present on the nodes of the leaves to increase the length of the nodes. We're done with the meristematic tissues. Now I'll explain to you the permanent tissues. The permanent tissues are of two types: simple permanent and complex permanent. So, simple permanent tissues are of four types: parenchyma tissue, collenchyma tissue, sclerenchyma tissue, and protective simple tissue. The parenchyma tissue is divided into two types, which is the arenchyma tissue and the chlorenchyma tissue. The chlorenchyma tissue is for, they have chlorophyll, and the arenchyma tissue is for buoyancy. They have air nodules or air sacs. Next is collenchyma tissue, which helps the trees to bend. Then the sclerenchyma tissue, which is present on the husks of the coconut. It's rigid, they are dead cells. Next is protective tissue, which forms a layer for the protection of the plant, and they have no intercellular space. And these are of two types: the epidermal and the cork. The epidermal is in the whole plant, and they have no intercellular space. They have cutin, and they are most prominent in desert plants. Comes the cork. The cork also has a chemical called suberin, and they are also present in the whole plant. Next come the complex tissue. We are done with the simple tissue. Now let's come to the broad category, complex tissue. We have xylem and phloem. So xylem has three parts: tracheids, vessels, xylem parenchyma, and also xylem sclerenchyma. I'm sorry, four types. Then comes the phloem, which have companion cells, phloem cells, and also the phloem. They also have the phloem parenchyma and phloem fiber or blast fiber and sieve cells, which are four types. Phloem helps transporting nutrients and food. Xylem helps in transporting water and nutrients. So this was it. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss any updates. So, hope you enjoyed today's lesson. I know it's a little boring and it is also a lengthy one. No problem. Make Venn diagrams and also take notes efficiently, because if you take notes like this for biology in these kind of lessons, you're sure to score very good and you understand better, especially when you're visualizing it. So, thank you so much. Bye, biologists. Hope you had fun.